All right, welcome back. Today we are on Torah Zion. It's a short one, but just as a recap from yesterday, there's an idea that every time we want to take a step forward, the Yetzer Hara comes and gives us a slap in the face. It's built into the fabric of creation. So a person needs to prepare themselves whenever they want to kind of jump to the next level or climb up to the next level, that there's going to be a boss, like a video game boss. You know, in order for you to get to the next stage, you're going to come with competition, and that competition is going to be the equivalent of where your skills are at. But know that we're Yisrael and that we can struggle and wrestle with God, with spirituality, whatever that means, and ultimately overcome. And that means that we're able to overcome the Yetzer Hara, but it just means it's that much more work. So now we're moving on to Torah Zion. V'ha'etzel hazeh litain tzedakah l'oniim hagunim ki ikor gedulat haborei yitbarach nitgale al yedei tzedakah shenotnim le'oni hagun. And so how do we go about overcoming this difficulty which the Yetzer Hara kind of presents against us? Well, Rabbi Nachman says that tzedakah to onim hagunim, fitting onim, fitting poor people. Unfortunately, we live in a society where not everybody who asks for money either really needs it or they become so addicted to it that they can't stop. I worked for a nonprofit that helped families get out of poverty, and I heard some pretty crazy stories, both on the absolutely tragic end and on the absolutely ridiculous end. So tragically, obviously, there's a lot of situations that people go through, and it's horrible, and we need to help these people as much as possible. But the ridiculous end is, I've heard countless stories about people who abuse the system. And so the nonprofit that I work for, L'man Achai, help families get out of poverty, and it's a lot of work. It's not so easy, but they help them emotionally prepare them, mentally prepare them, through skills so that they can support themselves. And those families were in a much better place than other people who abused the system and they refused to get help. So for me, when it says onim hagunim, the onim who are fitting, is that it needs to really be somebody who needs it, and it needs to be in a way that it can help them. I heard a story once when I was in yeshiva many years ago that they used to allow different beggars, poor people, to come into the Beit Midrash and ask for money. And it came to the forefront that one of the people who was asking for money and begging for money passed away. And they went into their home and they found, I think, literally millions of dollars of cash that was collected over the years. And this person had an illness and they became completely addicted to it. And and I heard a story in the name of Rav Avraham Twersky, Rabbi Dr. Avraham Twersky, and he said that, he told it in the name of, I think, Alexander the Great, and he said that Alexander the Great wanted to know, he wanted to become acquainted with all of his community, all of his kingdom, and so therefore he said, how best can I do that? By understanding what their professions are. So, and he said, I'm going to spend 3 days doing whatever the profession is so I can better understand my people. So, 3 days he became a plumber, in 3 days he was a merchant, in 3 days he was an architect, and so on and so forth. And he wanted to understand also the beggars in the streets. And he did that for 2 days and he stopped. And his advisors asked him, why did you stop after 2 days? Everything else you did for 3 days. But this you only stopped after 2 days. And he said, because I did it for 2 days. And it became so easy to just walk up to people and ask for money and to get it directly in my hand that I knew if I did it for one more day, I would have become addicted to it, and I would not have been able to stop myself. So, yes, we see very clearly that the recommendation from Rabbi Nachman in order to overcome our Yetzer Hara is to give tzedakah, but it needs to be tzedakah that is given to a source that we know it's absolutely going to help that person. If you give tzedakah, but you give it to a person who's addicted to heroin and they're just going to put it up their arm, that is not considered tzedakah. That's considered damage. Maybe get that person a sandwich, get them a bottle of water, something that they can use immediately, but not something that they can abuse. Okay. Lo ani agun shal yedei zeh hakadosh baruch hu mitgadel mitpaer v'al yedei zeh yizkeh lachni'ah haklipot shehem hamniot v'abilbulim v'chulei shemitgabrim b'chol darga v'darga kanal. So Rabbi Nachman says that when we give tzedakah, we ultimately are overcoming an element of our nature. Our nature isn't necessarily to give per se. We like receiving, we like taking things, and some of our hard-earned money, we would like to typically use that for something that's beneficial for ourselves or our families. However, when we take out of our pocket and give our hard-earned money to somebody who needs it, that is ultimately breaking a part of ourselves. We're overcoming ourselves. And here, Rabbi Nachman says, through that is ultimately bringing the glory of Hashem and the beautification of Hashem into the world. And it therefore kind of pushes off the klipot that are preventing us from attaching to spirituality and overcoming, and that enables us to overcome the different spiritual challenges that happen when we want to go up a level. So, as a sikum, Rabbi Nachman says, if you want to overcome the Yetzer Hara, especially when you're going from one madrega to the next, you need to give tzedakah to people who deserve it, and that therefore brings this extra level of godliness. It reveals an extra level of godliness into the world, because Hashem is the biggest giver of the world, and therefore we're acting like Hashem, and for that expression of godliness in the world, that pushes off kind of the dark forces. Hashem is all light, kulo light, whatever that means, and the dark forces can't handle light. So when we bring this light into the world specifically through tzedakah, we're able to push off those negative forces and therefore overcome that boss at the end of the level. And that was Torah Zion.